so today we are turning this barrel into what again? A whiskey cabinet. So I think first we'll probably clean it. I don't know though. I'm not the expert here.
So today I'm going to show you how I turn this old barrel into a whiskey cabinet, or really just a really cool end table that's sitting in my living room right now. So first off, first thing I had to do was get these rings off. So I just used a chisel and a hammer and just knocked them off. They're pretty easy to come off. Once I got those off, I wanted to sand down the entirety of the barrel. So my barrel, the one I got, was not in great shape. It wasn't extremely symmetric, and there were a lot of rough edges. So I didn't aim to get it perfectly sanded down. What I aimed to do was to get rid of all the sharp edges. So each planking of the barrel I sanded down, and then I rounded off the edges. That way, if you caught it, it didn't cut you. So this took a hot minute. As you can see in the video, we spent a lot of time sanding this thing down, but this step is really important to get the barrel smoothness down to the quality that you want. So I went with a heavier grit to start out with, I believe a 60 grit, and then I went down to 100 grit for my edges, and then kind of the second coating. So that's what I'm doing right here. I'm using my 100 grit to kind of medium finish out everything. Sanding was definitely one of the longer portions of this project, just to make sure that I got it down to however I wanted. However, I mean, if you're not concerned about it, the overall smoothness of the barrel, then I mean, you can obviously speed through this step a lot quicker than what I did. I also polished off I left the upper and the lower ring on. I've seen a few videos of people who did these who took those off and the whole barrel falls apart. So I left mine on, and I wasn't really concerned with the wood underneath it. The rings I did take off, I made sure I sanded all the rust off of both the insides and outs. And I used steel wool for most of those. Initially I wanted to tung oil finish it. I really like tung oil. I think it gives wood a really nice natural looking color. And so that's what I'm doing right now. I actually tung oiled my initial coat on it. I ended up changing my mind later, as you'll see, but even despite that fact, going with the tung oil early on, I ended up liking what ended up happening. So tung oil is really easy. You just get it on a rag, and then you wipe it into the wood, and then when you're done, you wipe up the excess. So as you can see, it leaves the natural color and just kind of gives it a wet finished look. I'm a pipe smoker, and my grandpa was a pipe smoker, and when he died, I got a lot of his old pipes, and a good majority of them I finished with tung oil, and I really love tung oil finish. You see, I had this little piece of wood there that I used to pivot my my barrel on, so I didn't scratch it up on the pavement. My 8-year-old decided that she wanted to help out too, so she helped me polish out some of these rings. Later, I decided that I wanted to go with a little bit different stain, so that's what we're doing right now. I had some Molten Minwax. I believe it's American Classic is what we're using on this right here. And so the tongue oil had pretty well dried at this point, and then we were just staining over the tongue oil. So it absolutely works. The finish ended up coming out really, really well, despite the fact that I tongue oiled it first. So if you want to go that route, try the tongue oil first, and then you decide you want to stain over it, there's nothing wrong with that. It'll absolutely hold up. And so this gave it a darker, more barrel look to it. And I really, really liked how this stain ended up turning out. Kind of see where I'm at this stage. So I went over one more coat of it. And then wipe down the rings. So now we're putting the rings back on. This was pretty simple. For the most part, they just slide down, and then I used a flathead screwdriver and then a hammer to knock them down into place. So you kind of want to finesse that portion so you don't scratch your finish, you don't scratch your wood up. So this next portion, now we're going to secure it. And so what I ended up doing was I ended up drilling holes in every single plank on every single strap. This was probably the worst part of this entire project, was drilling these holes. I went through a couple different metal bits, and it took me a long while to get all these holes drilled. Once I got all the holes drilled, I got screws for each individual hole, and I started screwing them in to hold the straps in place on each of the planks. So if you're going to leave your barrel just a barrel, and you're not going to cut into it, this part isn't necessary. However, I'm going to cut a door out, and so I have to make sure that the strapping is in place and held to each plank, so when I do cut the door out, it doesn't fall apart. So then what I decided to do for the door was I just cut along the strapping. I tried using my saw, and it wasn't very stable, so I ended up resorting to just hand sawing with a saw blade and an attachable handle. And this took quite a while too. As you can see, I used two 2x4 pieces to kind of hold it in place, and then to support it so it wasn't rubbing against the ground. I probably could have rigged up a little stand for this, however I didn't have the 2x4 pieces I needed, and I really just never actually wanted to take the time to do it, but it's definitely an option and probably would have made this process a little bit smoother. Once I had gotten through each side, then I used a little mini grinder, a Dremel mini grinder, to cut the metal bands. And then we're able to take the door out. And that's what it looks like when you're able to get the door piece out. So this was the first time I got to see the inside of the barrel, and I was pretty happy with it because I didn't know how it was going to end up looking. And I've had this barrel for a long time, so I was honestly expecting to find something living in there, but nope, it was completely clean, except for the sawdust that came in while I was cutting the door out. As you can tell by the back of the board, I did get it. I ended up scratching up my barrel a couple times, which was fine. I later ended up sanding it out and just reapplying my my finish coat to it, and you can't even tell that the scratches were ever there. So we vacuumed out the sawdust real quick. And I started planning on how I was going to attach my hinges. So I decided to go ahead and power wash the inside out to try to get as much of the charcoal off the barrel as possible. Because you could rub your finger on there and it came off very black, and since I intend on putting things in here, I wanted it very clean. So I went ahead and power washed both sides and then dried them off and then let them go, and then recoated the edges, the cut edges of both the door and the inside of the barrel. I then got a clear coat Minwax and decided to go ahead and clear coat all of the charred pieces on the inside. This was just to ensure that it was absolutely protected and covered and wasn't going to stain anything that I put in here. So I pre-drilled holes for my hinges, but a lesson I learned here, for any of you who are trying to copy my methods, when I initially put them on, as you're seeing now, this ended up not working. So I had to move the hinges to the middle instead, because as you rotate the barrel outward, the way those hinges bend in, it catches it. And then here what we're trying to do is we're trying to bend the barrel back in. So once you cut out that door, the tension is no longer on it, and so the planking's kind of spread out. And so I explored a couple different methods on what to do here, and ended up not really settling on any. But I wasn't able to get it bent back in. So in the future, I've got these bars, these tension rods that I'm going to end up putting on the door to try to pull them in, to try to kind of hold it in place. But just something to be aware of as you're doing these doors, that when you cut that out, your bands will probably expand outward, and that door is going to seem like it doesn't quite fit. And then here's the finished project. So I've still got a few things that I want to do with it. However, it's something that I'm not going to get to for a while. So when I do eventually get to that, I will post an update. But eventually what I'd like to do is I'd like to put a rotating cabinet on the inside, and actually put some shelving in it. So we'll see what I do. And when I actually get around to doing that, I will post an update. Thanks for watching.